in this context, there has been a lot of talk with regard to digital IDs and central bank currencies and so on and so forth. And I first brought this to the attention of the public in December of 2021. And one of the most important things that I think we actually fail to understand is, number one, what is a central bank digital currency and how is it linked to a digital ID? And the other is, how do central bank currencies operate? And joining us this morning is a very intelligent young man out of Jamaica who wrote a book on this subject. And his name is Mr. Nicoy Mills. And he joins us this morning, and he's going to give us a rundown of his book, and he's going to explain to us in detail what we need to look out for, how to understand what is happening around us. Welcome to the program, Nicoy.
Good morning. Thank you, Fred. Good morning to everyone on the panel, and good morning to all the listeners.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, my name is Nicoy Mills. I am from Jamaica, and I am just a normal citizen. I don't have any PhD in economics or finance or anything like that. But I investigated central bank digital currencies, and that investigation arose out of the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, we're all locked down at home with nothing to do and just sitting there listening to what the government is telling us to do. And over time, as they kept moving the line in the sand, you know, I began to think that, okay, something is amiss here. And so that is what caused me, to go down that rabbit hole of what is really happening. And the issue, the thing that was at the forefront was the Great Reset. So that is the umbrella or the fourth industrial revolution. I'm sure most persons would have heard one of those two terms by now. And so one of the catalysts for launching us into this great reset or this fourth industrial revolution is central bank digital currencies. And so I thought that, okay, I would just collate the information that I uncovered and put it in a book. So the name of the book is Everything You Need to Know About Central Bank Digital Currency. A deep dive into digital currencies and how they will impact your future. And this is available on Amazon in Kindle and PDF formats. Now, if you are to do any kind of research into central bank digital currencies, then the information that you will find will be very palatable. So the Bank of Jamaica's definition of central bank digital currency is a digital representation of central bank issued cash, right? And that is a misrepresentation. And is hence a legal tender. It should not be confused with cryptocurrency, which is issued privately and not backed by a central authority. CBDC is entirely backed by the central bank, which serve as the sole issuer. So that is what they will tell you, but that is not what central bank digital currencies are. So I will go into the outline of the book. So it has 8 chapters. I look at the history of money in the first chapter. So this is basically looking at the earlier forms of exchanging value. So I spoke about the system of barter, and then I move on to commodity money, which is essentially an evolved form of the bartering system, except that instead of just exchanging random things, you would exchange a specific commodity that is identified as a unit of exchange, for example, salt. So in the traditional bartering system, you would see, let's say, a farmer exchanging a cow for 2 goats, just as an example. Whereas in the commodity system, a person who wishes to acquire 2 goats would trade their value in pounds of salt, right? So I moved on now in the next chapter to look at the current monetary system, because I wanted people to understand where we were and where they are trying to take us. So I'm looking at the history of money, the current monetary system, then central bank digital currency, and so on. So in chapter 2, I'm looking at the current monetary system, which speaks to fiat currency. And, fiat is by government decree. And so I spoke about the Bretton Woods Agreement in July of 1944 and the subsequent abolition of the gold standard in 1971. And I kind of fleshed out the misconception that people have when it comes to money, because people generally believe that the pieces of paper that we have in our pockets and we give to the shopkeeper or we give to the conductor is money, when it's not. That's not money, that's currency. Money is not something that is tangible. So I think me here talking to you is a form of money, because you're placing value on what I have to say. So there is a constant exchange of value, which is money, in our everyday activities. Because it's the value that we place on something or someone or an event that is really money. It is not a tangible thing. Now, how we exchange that value, that is where currency comes in. So we want a unit of exchange that we can measure and make it easier for people to have commerce and for economic activity to take place. So I look at that in chapter 2. Then in chapter 3, I look at central bank digital currency, right? So I talk about what CBDCs actually are. I look at their features and I talk about how they differ from fiat currency, because as you heard from the definition that the Bank of Jamaica gave, it is basically digital cash. So once you hear cash, it's similar to how they call the mRNA biologics vaccines when they were not. So they're, because people are familiar with the term vaccine and because people are familiar with the term cash, they say, oh yeah, it's just another form of cash, or oh, it's just another vaccine. So you will not think twice about anything, because okay, obviously, okay, it's just another form of cash. We'll use it to trade value. No big deal. Life goes on and everybody's fine, when that is not the case. So I talk about how CBDCs differ from fiat currency. I look at the advantages and disadvantages of CBDCs, and I also look at some of the possible problems that CBDCs could create for us in the future. Then in the next chapter, I talk about CBDCs versus cryptocurrencies, because this is also another misconception that people have. They believe that, oh, because everybody knows or have heard about Bitcoin, and we talk about blockchain, and the Bitcoin is in a blockchain and the blockchain is on a ledger and all of that stuff, and we think, okay, well, CBDCs are just like Bitcoin, Ethereum, stable coins, whatever, Dogecoin. No, it's not. So I look at the common misconceptions that people have about CBDCs and cryptocurrencies, and I look at the differences between CBDCs and cryptocurrencies, and also the differences between CBDCs and the current monetary system, because they are going to replace the current monetary system that we have with CBDCs, so that they can bring in the fourth industrial revolution. We can see that evidence in our society right now, where governments have been printing money nonstop. Everywhere, they're just printing money, and people don't understand that. Yes, you're sitting at home, the government give you a $1,400 check. That's all well and good for you, but you're gonna have to pay for that in interest. That is going to cause inflation to go through the roof. It's going to collapse the dollar, and it's going to collapse the economy. The US dollar, which has been reserved currency for some time, the US government has printed trillions of dollars in the last 2 years. So what is going to happen when you have that much supply in the economy? That is going to plunge the value of the dollar to the ground, and you're going to have yourself now in a recession and then a depression. And we can see that happening, because we can feel the crunch at the supermarkets. Prices of goods and services have gone up. Then in the next chapter, I look at the dark side of central bank digital currency. I'll be interchanging CBDC and central bank digital currency. It's just the acronym and the actual term is just sometimes saying it is takes a little while. So now this is where I talk about the programmability of CBDC. So this is the most important thing that people need to understand about the CBDCs, and this is the most important difference between CBDCs and cryptocurrencies and cash or fiat money or whatever idea you have in your head of what CBDCs are. This is what you need to understand. They are programmable digital liabilities, because it's not money. It's a digital liability that the government creates, right? And if the government is creating a liability, who is going to pay for that liability? It has to be us, because the government is not a business. We pay taxes, and that is how the government is funded. So I look at the programmability of CBDCs and how this feature now will erase our privacy and control every economic activity that is undertaken. So, for example, once all transactions are moved to the digital domain, because they're going to go fully digital, right? They're going to phase out cash, and there's going to be a worldwide propaganda campaign on how bad cash is, just like how we had that worldwide campaign and how scared you're supposed to be of COVID-19. Something like that is going to happen, so that people will become more accepting of just tap and go, right? So once they phase out all the cash and move now our online activities to the digital domain, our purchases will no longer be private. So each digital currency that is in your digital wallet is programmable and trackable, and every transaction that digital dollar is engaged in will be recorded on that dollar. They will be able to track every single transaction that digital money facilitates. So if the government wants to, let's say, reduce your consumption of meat, then they will know how much meat you have consumed for the period, and they can say, okay, well, you have met your quota for this period, so we are going to program your CBDC to not be able to buy meat for whichever period of time they have restricted it for. That is just to give you an idea of where this is headed, so that people don't believe that, okay, it's just like Bitcoin or Dogecoin or stablecoin, or it's just another digital whatever, because we're all used to how do I put it? We are all used to digital money in the sense that, when if you log into your bank account online, you'll see a figure on there, right? And that's digital. It doesn't really just a figure that you see on the screen, say, okay, I have $2 in my account, right? So we're thinking that it's the same thing when it comes. No, 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 no. There is no physical, because you can walk into the bank and say, hey, I need my $2, and they will have to give you two physical dollars for you to walk out with. With CBDCs, there is no physical representation of that fiat liability. You cannot go and demand anything from the bank to say, hey, give me my money. You can't. It only exists in the digital domain. And therefore, if it only exists in the digital domain, it simply means that you have no control over it, because you did not create it, you did not program it. The features that it have, you have nothing to do with that. It just exists in the digital domain, and obviously it will remain the property of the entity that created the money in the first place. In the next chapter, I look at the Great Reset. So, Klaus Schwab and the Davos elites have been talking about the Great Reset for some time, right? Or you may have heard the Great Narrative, because they change it sometime. Or you may have heard the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Right now, what is this Great Reset? In the words of Klaus Schwab, if simply put it, you will own nothing, and this is a quote, and you will be happy. That's what they say. So basically, I look at Klaus Schwab's idea of stakeholder capitalism. That term that really don't mean anything, but his definition of stakeholder capitalism is that it is reimagining our global economy so it becomes more sustainable and prosperous for all global economic systems, right? And we can replace the current picture of global upheavals and sustainability and uncertainty with one of an economy that works for all people on the planet. So you look at the war in Ukraine, the war between Ukraine and Russia. That's orchestrated, by the way, right? So when we see these things happening, and here we have these people telling us, you know what, we're trying to imagine a better world and we're trying to make a better world for you. So come on board with us. The grass is green over on this side. That is what they're trying to sell you. But what does it really mean when they say you will own nothing and you will be happy? So I looked at the three major components of the Great Reset. The first one is steering the market towards more equitable outcomes. And they try to achieve this goal where government will strengthen cooperation in tax, regulatory and fiscal policies, modernize trade agreements, and create conditions for a stakeholder economy. Now, they're using all these fancy terms because stakeholder economy is a quote from Klaus Schwab. Like, what does that even mean? Right? The second component is ensuring that investments reflect important objectives such as equality and sustainability. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, you're all rich, you're all billionaires. Like, why don't you use your money to ensure that right now? Why do we need a whole new system for that? Right? So they're saying that the Great Reset would allow governments to use existing resources to build a new system. So, right, this is now an insidious attempt to inject the new world order. We don't want to really say the new world order because people, that one has some negative connotation. So we just say we're going to build a new system that is more robust, equitable, and sustainable. So this includes, for example, the creation of green urban infrastructure and the provision of incentives for industries to improve their ESGs, which are economic, societal, and governance performance. But anywhere you hear the term green, anything that is coming out of the Agenda 21 agreement from, I think it was somewhere in 1992, where they signed that agreement in Rio de Janeiro, which is an auditing of the entire resources on the planet, and then now, saying to each region, say, okay, well, you have these resources, you can only sustain so many people with these resources. And so that is an insidious attempt to introduce their depopulation agenda. But we can't say, okay, well, we're trying to depopulate people. We just go and say, okay, well, we have audited your resources and we're seeing that you can only sustain, 50,000 people. So you're going to have to now take measures to ensure that you remain sustainable and viable. And their the third component of the Great Reset now is the fourth industrial revolution. Now, that's kind of vague too, and that is benefiting the public good. Obviously, that's a vague term. Like, what's the public good? Addressing health and social challenges. There are all these vagaries that they use. So they're saying a lot of nothing to hide their real agenda. Their idea of the fourth industrial revolution is, and this is very important, is the blurring of the boundaries between the physical, digital, and biological worlds. So where is that taking us? Human 2.0, right? You're talking about a hybrid species of human beings that are connected to technology and are no longer Homo sapiens, and that is where the mRNA technology is coming. But I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, right? Then I look at the real agenda of the Great Reset. And here I look at certain activities that the World Economic Forum, Big Pharma, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, because they're everywhere, and other health organizations were engaged in the years leading up to the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak in 2009. So I look at the World Economic Forum and John Hopkins simulation of a pandemic known as CLADE-X, which was intended to evaluate how prepared the world would be for a pandemic. Then Event 201, which was another simulation that most people probably are not aware. They ran a COVID, I don't want to say COVID-19. They ran a coronavirus simulation in October 2019, 2 months before the outbreak in Wuhan, or what's before they publicized the outbreak in Wuhan. Because if you do some research, you realize that there was some outbreak, I think, back in August of the same coronavirus thing. At the God, there were some military games in China. So this Event 201 simulation concluded that the world was unprepared for a global outbreak. I would encourage everyone to go watch that. It's on YouTube, and you will see the glaring similarities between the real coronavirus, the real COVID-19 pandemic, and their simulation that they ran 2 months before the actual outbreak. And in the final chapter, I look at central bank digital currency and try to tie the pieces together and demonstrate the relationship between CBDCs and the Great Reset through the lens of 8 predictions for the future. So I'm not sure if you're aware that they had this weird, creepy video of this smiling, spaced out looking white dude. With there were no words being said, but there were some words flashing across the screen, and they had 8 predictions for the future. So the first one was, "You will own nothing and you will be happy." And we need to think about, like, what do they mean by that? Okay, I will own nothing and I will be happy. How do you know that I will be happy anyway? Right? And that is where we have to know, look back to the fusion of the biological and the digital. And you can read, there's a white paper written by Policy Horizon Canada called the Biodigital Convergence. If you should read that, I think it's 8 pages, then you will have an understanding how you will own nothing and be happy. Right? Then they talk about a global carbon tax. Now, obviously, with the global carbon tax, if we have programmable currencies, and we are going to say, okay, we're going to look at your activities and say, okay, well, you did this, you did that, based on what you purchased with your digital currency. We can say, okay, well, you have met your carbon quota for the month, so we're just going to shut off your money, and you can't buy anything. You literally can't do anything, because we shut off your money. You have used up all your carbon credits for this month, so you're tough, you're out of luck. Right? They're saying that the United States will no longer be a superpower. So when we see what is happening in the United States, the invasion of the border, the flooding the market with so much money, right, to bring about a recession and then a depression, then we see that they're trying to collapse the United States of America. So, and obviously China is the model. They always speak so fondly of China when they look at how China handled the pandemic, right? They're saying hospitals will no longer exist. So that is also, you have to go to the Biodigital Convergence to get an understanding of how that will happen, because you will be fused with AI. So AI will be inside you. There will be these nanobots inside of you that is monitoring your vitals 24/7, 365, even your dreams. Right? There will be meat rationing. No, I'm sure you may have seen where they're talking about, oh, well, you can eat worms and bugs and cockroaches, whatnot. So meat will be a real thing. Syrian refugees will be CEOs. This one didn't make any sense to me. Western ideology will be severely challenged, and then they're saying that we will colonize Mars. Don't know how they intend to do that, but that is the gist of everything that the book covers. It is a great read. It's not very long. It's just about 43 pages for you to read, and there's a wealth of information there. And I also have my own newsletter on Substack at unheardtruth.substack.com, where people can go and read some of the articles that I have written during the course of this pandemic, talking about some of the disinformation that were perpetrated by governments around the world. Thank you for your time.
All right. Okay. What I want to do right now is I'm
Thank
gonna
you very much.
Fantastic, Nico. Nico, that is one of the most comprehensive outlines that I have ever heard. Thank you so very much for bringing clarity to the public who is listening to us this morning. Thank you very much, brother.
right.
Much appreciated.
Right. Just stay on the
Thank
line.
you, Fred.
Yeah, just stay on the line. What I want to do, people, is I'm going to go for pause for calls. I want to save this. I'm going to let Fred and Mr. Tull and Nico chat off here while we go for pause for calls. Then when we come back, we're going to dissect some more information. And I do believe I got some questions to ask Mr. Nico over there in Jamaica, because I'm going to start by asking him what makes Jamaica so different in terms of why are Jamaica or Jamaicans starting to rebel about what they're seeing going on. So don't answer it now. Don't answer it now. Let me come back after the pause for the cause. Let me get the ball rolling. So I'll be back after this pause for cause. You can chat off here. Let's go for a pause for cause. Be back like this.